Hello, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the editors of AcademiaSG for organizing this panel and to Walid for moderating us. Today, I'll report on a pedagogical experiment in creating an undergraduate course called Everyday Ethics in Singapore. This cross-faculty module was piloted in 2018 and continues to run today. Each year, it takes in about 400 to 500 students from different disciplines, inviting them to read more slowly, think more deeply, and talk more openly about how their lives are shaped by inequality, meritocracy, multiculturalism, and migration. They are introduced to recent social scientific research about Singapore and philosophical texts on these topics. So the students write regular journal reflections over the semester with prompts to develop their own ethical perspectives. During tutorials, they then bring these reflections into moral dialogues, sharing as much as they want to in small groups. So in designing this course, I envisaged our instructors and students co-producing a new kind of ethical understanding, one that is nearer to our lived experiences in Singapore, more grounded than the loftier positions more commonly debated in philosophy classrooms. So everyday ethics, as I imagined it, cuts closer to blood and bone. We have to equip ourselves with new ethical tools. These tools include a motley of moral concepts and social scientific ideas about Singapore that raise new questions about the students' daily encounters and dilemmas. For those of you who are familiar with Professor Teo's writing, one of our exemplars of moral questioning is her informant, the community worker who asked in frustration, "Why must poor people always eat oats?" But the students themselves bring in their own expertise. They are, in a sense, experts on their lives at home and in school, at work and in play. Their task in the course is to look around themselves more bravely, more imaginatively, than to question and make meaning of what they see. Here are some of their questions. Why should they feel both grateful and guilty when parents provide well for them? Why do their elders make racist jokes? Why can't we easily meet the eyes of a migrant cleaner on campus? I recall one student identifying the diverse values embedded in their ride up and down an HDB lift. So the values promoted through posters, warning signs, advertisements pasted in the lift, those circulating in their conversations or interactions with neighbors liked and disliked. Another student recorded with wry humor and some despair how one day in their life was suffused with the need to demonstrate progress. Internal KPI, any and every progress, a need that they associated with an upbringing in Singapore. Many colleagues helped in designing this course. I'm the sort of philosopher who's capable about other disciplines. Some of them are here today at the conference, and one of them on this panel as well. So those from sociology, geography, political science, communication studies knew more than I did about how social structures and narratives shape daily experiences in Singapore. They also understood better the institutional and pedagogical challenges of creating a classroom for contentious discussions. So some advised me to be pedagogically radical without appearing too politically ideological. Others suggested some ways to allay the students' concerns about making mistakes, about losing face, about falling behind. I was soon joined by an evolving team of tutors who modeled considerable courage and authenticity for the students. Since about 2022, this team has been trained and led by my NUS colleague Daryl Wee, who's also here amongst us, He's now the convener and continues to experiment with the course. In hindsight, the design of this course also drew on two changing aspects of my professional self. At that time, I was a philosopher who had become disenchanted with moral abstractions. So this part of me was quite reassured when a philosophy major complained that everyday ethics can get too real. One of our readings had prompted the student to explore quite a painful dilemma about their mixed ethnic heritage. That very semester, another student was overheard warning others that this course isn't really philosophy, a claim which was almost as reassuring to me, suggesting that we were moving somewhere toward the difficulty of reality. A difficulty not so easy to categorize in professional or disciplinary terms. During this period of experiment, I was also training to be a counselor, learning how to listen to anxiety from a more psychodynamic perspective. So I was becoming more aware of how unconscious conflicts relate to developmental challenges. That part of me began to listen more patiently to anxieties that our students shared in conversation and writing. So they experience fear, sometimes even terror, when asked to articulate their moral views about what they regarded as sensitive topics. They resent any pressure to position themselves in complex social worlds. Lately, they also worry about being woke, about being too woke, or about being cancelled. I think a sign of how much social media increasingly occupies their internal worlds. They can feel persecuted by voices of authority, voices represented by or internalized from parents and relatives, teachers of all ages, including myself, and religious and secular authorities. One confused and frustrated student from the first semester demanded of me, "Can you just say whether you want us to be pro or anti-government?" We might hear that demand as quite characteristically Singaporean. Kirsten invited us yesterday to think a little about the mechanisms of indirect censorship. And here you have the government showing up even in our super egos. But I also heard in this student's demand the psychological defenses of projection and splitting. Can you just say whether you want us to be pro or anti-government? Projection, splitting. Relatively primitive defenses that our egos turn to when we feel attacked or put under unfamiliar pressure. As I learned more about the students' discomforts and defenses, I came to believe that they enact in our classroom some of the psychological and developmental processes associated with late adolescence. They're trying to separate from their familiar selves as they discover a more mature ethical identity, negotiating this identity amid new and conflicting sources of authority. So they have to give up some security in depending on others in order to gain more of the freedoms and responsibilities of moral adulthood. In the light of these developmental challenges, these anxieties and defenses, how do we enable students to listen and learn more from each other's perspectives? So first, the course provides some containment for their anxieties. We welcome the students to start their general reflections or moral dialogues with any fears and frustrations in broaching a topic. I often modeled how to think about such anxieties. I might, for instance, acknowledge how these anxieties sometimes push me to avoid discomfort and to act out, whether by closing off a discussion or taking sides prematurely in a debate. Secondly, we offer the students meaningful choice in when and how to engage with a topic that moves them personally. So they choose whether to explore their discomforts and defenses in each journal reflection. They decide how much personal experience they want to draw on, or disclose in every moral dialogue. Nothing is excluded from our invitation to witness each other, even the pressure they might feel to represent a community or to disavow a particular perspective. Third, we encourage the students to listen to each other with more compassion, a central part of the ethos of the module. Through various exercises, they practice norms of dialogue that promote curiosity about different perspectives. They clarify cultural meanings, negotiate imperfect compromises of understanding. They learn to recognize impasses that are fueled by projection and splitting. As a result, they can respond more kindly and flexibly to these defenses when they show up in themselves and in others. Very often they end up discovering that one student withdraws into silence and sullenness for the same reason that provokes another to be more combative. So by providing some containment, choice, and compassion, our classroom becomes a more safe and reflective space. So in their moral dialogues, at least the last time I taught it, the students have explored personal and policy dilemmas associated with class, education, gender, sexuality, race, and citizenship. They have even anticipated recent turns in public debates, such as those on AI in education, the tudong, and migrant mental health. My hope is that the course continues to offer this kind of thinking space for the students, one in which they can make new ethical meaning from their everyday experiences in Singapore, one in which they can link the intrapersonal dynamics that they're observing in themselves with interpersonal dynamics and institutional ones. Thank you.